Dayıların dayısı.
Abilerin abisi be.
Nasılsın, iyi misin?
Sen de 2 sene önce yine bu sarı koltukta buluştuğumuzda
Anlatacağı konu da şu: düşük maliyetli küçük ekiplerle büyük proje yaratmak.
sen şimdi hangisini savunacaksın onu söyle
Abi
bana.
bugün evet. Ben de tabii ki 2007'yi savunacağım.
Sen 2007'yi savundun. Shot fire! Shot fire!
Game Jam, Fall Jam sizin için bir Steam oyunu yayınlamak için temel olabilir.
İnanılmaz büyük bir fırsat yani bu hakikaten.
Artık herhalde PlayStation 6'yı görmeyeceğiz.
Şu anda 9 liraya çıktı. 9,5'a doğru gidiyor.
Gidiyor.
Yani ona da gider.
Kafa rahat. Güzel. Evet.
Hepiniz tekrar hoş geldiniz. Şimdiki oturumumuz İngilizce olarak devam edecek. O yüzden Türkçe dinlemek isterseniz aşağıdaki menüden Türkçe dil seçeneğini seçmeyi unutmayın. Welcome everyone. For our third panel today, Oytun Kal will be joining us. He is an XR artist and lecturer at Bahçeşehir Medipol Universities. He will talk about Indieways for using game engines in film and TV industries. Participants will discover artistic use of game engines as cinematic storytelling tool for animations and live action works. I'm inviting him to join us. Hello, welcome.
Hello, nice to be here. Thank you very much.
You can start whenever you're ready with your screen sharing. I'm here if you need anything.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen. Okay. I'm very glad to be here, part of these panels. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm Oytun Kal. As it is mentioned here, I'm an XR artist who develops and designs AR, VR products, and also a filmmaker, and also a lecturer. Nowadays, I'm giving lectures at Bahçeşehir University and Medipol Universities. But this semester, we have a special course that is dedicated to virtual production, making films with game engines. During this presentation, I will share some of my insights, some of my experiences about our continuing course. And I would like to share how we can learn from pro production facilities and how we can implement those facilities and techniques, methodologies into our low budget studio environments, or even to individual developers or designers if they would like to create cinematic storytelling works with game engines. Just a brief introduction about myself. I studied digital film and animation in Germany, and there I started to work in film productions. When I came back to Turkey, I became a lecturer at a private educational institute, namely the SA Institute. And when I was working as a lecturer there, I have witnessed one of the biggest problems that we were always discussing with our students too, which was we couldn't afford all the biggest cameras or equipment all the time, as it was always intended or desired by our students. So I started to have an interest in virtual reality technologies and how we can implement those technologies into our course curriculum. With that in mind, I have also studied game design as a master's, and I have graduated with a thesis on educational virtual reality game design for cinematic storytelling. I always had our students in my head when I was thinking about it. So I continue to give lectures in related topics, but I also work and create freelance projects, whether it's going to be more cinematographic storytelling works, or sometimes they are just commercial AR, VR works. I also have a private Discord channel. If anyone would like to keep in touch with me, I would like to just invite you to join. I just created a shortened web link for it. If you'd like to join, you can use this link. Most of the time I'm sharing there what I already learned about these processes, about these new tools. and it helps me to organize my head too. And also sometimes we give our lectures in one platform, like in Zoom, sometimes in Microsoft Teams, and sometimes those links are getting lost after the semester is closed. So also one of the purposes of this Discord group is to preserve those links to stay with us forever. During this presentation, I would like to use these bullet points. So namely, these are game engines as pre-visualization tools, game engines and other 3D softwares for making films and animations. With that, I mean creating final works that are suitable for watching either in online platforms like Netflix or in television. There are many examples that have even participated in film festivals and were created purely in game engines. So nowadays we are going through a revolution in terms of using real-time filmmaking technologies, and everyone is invited. I would like to encourage everyone to join this revolution because there is place for everyone. I mean, there is place for 3D designers, there's place for cinematographers, filmmakers, storytellers, designers, artists of all kinds are pretty much welcome in this new revolution. In addition to that, I would like to talk about virtual production, which is not that new, but still there are some new technologies that is creating a better environment for us to composite in real time. With that, I will share some examples, also some examples from our lectures where we are visiting, for example, some professional studio environments within Turkey. The fourth bullet point would be game-like software, XR tools, and platforms to create cinematic storytelling works. With that, I mean shooting in VR environments or using VR tools or as pre-visualization tools and things like that. So this is basically my content, and let us start. First of all, using game engines or game engine like 3D softwares is not that really new. I mean, even in Lord of the Rings, which was made in 2001, there was a great attempt to create animatics. What do we mean with animatics? These are animated storyboards that helps both the director and the other members of the production team. So it is again a communication device between the departments. Everyone who is going to watch these kind of animatics are going to learn about the techniques that are going to be needed during the film production. Like, for example, what kind of camera angles are going to be needed? What kind of production design facilities had to be designed beforehand? And things like that. As you can see, the quality at that time, around 2001, the quality was not that good. I mean, there is no facial expressions. The characters are very low poly and the lighting is not that good. So if we would compare it to what we can handle today with our current game engines, there is a great development. You can even call it an evolution. So as you can see, this video is by Third Floor, which is one of the most prominent companies that is working on creating cinematic pre-visualization works for many of the big budget Hollywood movies. And as you can see within the video, these great examples are sometimes from Game of Thrones, Spider-Man, Marvel movies, a bunch of other examples. And as you can see, they are using game engines. And first of all, before I continue any longer, I would like to also say one thing clearly, which is nowadays Unreal Engine is getting a little bit much more popular, and it's also one of the sponsors of this event. I'm also a great fan of Unreal Engine, but I would not like to sound like a team Unreal, because competition is always good for all kinds of designers, and we always want competition to bring new and better products into the industry. So therefore, I will also mention some other 3D softwares like Unity and like Blender even. So therefore, do not think that Unreal Engine is the only solution to making films or film-like environments with game engine. And in addition to that, when we are talking about pre-visualization, we can again have a great reference to XR tools. Like for example, this is just a basic tool, which is still in beta. It's created by Microsoft. And as you can see, virtual reality environments can even be used by filmmakers as a pre-visualization, as a pre-production tool. So this does not necessarily mean you have to use this content in your final work. But as you can see, the story is written on a script. It's standing right next to you. And all this interface makes it a lot easier for everyone who would like to learn from this content. Like, for example, what kind of props should the production designer have to find? Or what kind of positioning had to be arranged in this environment, etc., etc., or what kind of lighting even. So again, let me briefly tell you this. These pre-visualization tools are considered as communication tools between the departments when making movies or films. Another great example would be Theory, which is again a great tool. It is used again with a VR headset. And as you can see, you can arrange your environment. You can create your animatics, as you have seen in the previous examples, like the Lord of the Rings. And you can even use puppeteering tools to adjust your characters' positions and movements. And again, use script like text files as if you are going to need it, etc., etc. So these tools are going to be used now more and more in filmmaking procedures. There is this term virtual production, but it is an umbrella term. So Game of Thrones virtual, when we are talking about Game of Thrones virtual production, again, we should understand something that is more in the manner of pre-visualization again, like in these examples. As you can see, those big scenes are being prepared within game engines, but still sometimes for deciding for the shooting angles and other elements of the shooting, VR tools can be used. So VR is not necessary for virtual production, and virtual production does not only mean using LED walls as background elements. The most common understanding of virtual production nowadays is actually using these LED walls as our background elements, background walls, because of the great success of The Mandalorian. But let us stick to the title of our presentation, namely creating Indieways for making films with game engines. So here I would like to share something, a short film created by an independent designer who always wanted to be a filmmaker, but nowadays, thanks to his new learned skills in Unreal Engine, he successfully completes a lot of good short films and movies as an individual. So this is a good example of how Unreal Engine can be used to create a final work. So this time I'm making a differentiation between creating a pre-visualization work and creating a final work. As you can see, when we take a look at the contents of this short film, the designer, the developer, can even use virtual cameras to reflect the hand camera-like movements into the game engine. So this allows us to have a more organic feeling within the content. In addition to that, Unreal Engine has bunch of additions that come freely within the ecosystem of Unreal Engine, thanks to Epic Games. We have now abilities to use virtual beings that look almost real. I'm not going to say that we have passed the uncanny valley, which refers to the disturbance that we experience when we see a human-like character, but it is not quite there yet. Like if you take a look at a zombie or a human-like robot, which still does not look like a human being, we have that disturbance. We all know that feeling. So I will not say that the meta-humans have finally succeeded to cross that valley, but still we are very close to solving those kind of problems. And if you take a look at these examples, if the characters have some kind of like robotic elements and some kind of small touches that differentiate them from trying to be a photorealistic human being, that could have a better understanding for watchers, viewers. So that kind of disturbance would reduce, I would suggest. So as you can see, this is a final product. It is not a pre-visualization work. And all these characters who look like almost real are freely available for anyone who would start downloading Unreal Engine today. They have to also add Quixel Bridge to their inventory. So they will have a free access to many of these capabilities that you can see here. Let me continue with the next examples. I said that I'm not on Team Unreal, but we also have to, of course, emphasize what Unreal Engine is capable of, because we are also seeing that things are changing on their side. So let us take a look at it, what I'm talking about. If we would take a look at this kind of an image, it's coming, sorry for the delay. By the way, I have a little bit unstable internet connection, but I have prepared my smartphone's internet on standby. So if I will lose my internet connection at home, it will connect directly to my smartphone. I hope it will not break the flow too much. So let me continue then. If you would take a look at this kind of an image, we could almost buy it, right? It looks almost real. And thanks to these new technologies with game engines, we can now use with Unreal Engine 5 models that doesn't necessarily have to be optimized, that doesn't necessarily have to be made smaller to be rendered in real time. So thanks to these technologies called nanite, this here example, we can have models with unlimited number of polygons and with very high resolution of textures and with a very good understanding for lighting that is again calculated within the engine. We can almost not differentiate between what's real and what's virtual. These tools can be used for even feature-length cinematic works. But when it comes to the characters, like I said earlier, we still need a few years ahead, but things are getting better. I mean, it is very difficult to create human-like characters, but if you will take a look at this content, you will see all these environments look almost real and the characters move very human-like. Of course, if you will get closer to them, and keep in mind, this content is a game-like experience. So it is not a film work, but easily, if you will just create this kind of an environment, you could basically start shooting your own films within it. As far as I know, this Unreal Engine 5 experiment does not allow it to use that kind of cinematographical elements, but it will be cool. So anyone who is listening from Epic Games, we are looking forward to test it also on our PCs, because so far it is only available for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. So, but like I said, Unity is also one of the great technology companies that is also supporting the usage of game engines in film environments. And movies like The Jungle Book or the Blade Runner, the newest one, and Ready Player One have used Unity very successfully. And when using it, we again use sometimes virtual cameras that allow us to shoot as if we are shooting in a real environment. So these cameras are tracked thanks to some techniques, some trackers that can be either inside out tracking or outside in tracking. It depends on the production facilities. But thanks to these technologies, all these virtual cameras can be used very easily to create organic camera movements within the virtual environments. As you can see, it doesn't necessarily have to be always photorealistic. You can sometimes use these kind of cartoony elements and create your animations. In addition to that, Unity recently bought Weta Digital, as many of you might know, which was very famous for creating the digital effects of Lord of the Rings and very successful projects like Planet of the Apes. So this again hints us that the competition is getting stronger, and it will again provide us designers, filmmakers, a great inventory of tools. So this kind of new technologies will always allow us to create with an easier access to these technologies, and also with great freedom to create. So Unity, again, is a free software, and anything that would come with Unity, if it's going to be any kind of Weta Digital tools, it will again be free. So there is no limit for anyone who would like to begin. Whether your chosen product is going to be Unity or Unreal Engine, you have no excuse to not start, actually, if you are considering making your own short films or movies with virtual environments, virtual characters. So in addition to that, I would like to also mention Blender's latest open movie. It is a short film created completely with an open source 3D software. And this is again a showcase of what this software is capable of. It looks almost like a Pixar movie with it has a little bit of dark humor. I would not like to spoil anything for you, but it is quite suggested for you to watch it and see what a 3D software like Blender, which again is freely available to anyone and which is also an open source software, can provide those who would like to create their own cinematographic storytelling works. I tend to use this terminology, cinematographic storytelling, because I consider it as an umbrella term. It quite helps me to use all different kinds of platforms and tools under one umbrella. So I hope it's also understandable for you, for our viewers. So in addition to that, we are still going through a pandemic, and I hope everyone is healthy and doing all right, and wish that we can get rid of all this chaos soon with a better world understanding for everyone and every country. That's what I really wish for everyone. But we also should admit that this pandemic process, this phase, has also brought many of these new technologies into our lives. And we thought that we were not going to use them anytime soon, but like this current situation where I'm giving a talk on Zoom is a great example of it. So this same thing has happened even in filmmaking, film production environments. So this term virtual production has become very famous recently again, thanks to Mandalorian. As you can see, I have just made a small description of this terminology. When we are talking about virtual production, it can again be used as an umbrella term, but when I am talking about virtual production with LED screens, we should again think about works, film projects where game engines play an important role, because we again need the great skills, great capabilities of game engines in terms of real-time rendering. So in Unity or Unreal Engine, we can create our virtual environments, and we can use those environments, as many of you know already. We can use many of these background elements on LED walls. Let me find a situation where we can see an LED wall very easily. So, as you know, Mandalorian is quite famous for its usage of these LED walls, and it still does not have an indie way of creating things. I mean, it is still a very high budget film production, and it doesn't necessarily reduce the film costs. But during the pandemic, we have seen that it has reduced some elements in a film set. Like, for example, the lighting is even supported with these LED walls. So there is less need for physical lights on tripods, for example. Or sometimes we have even seen that directors and filmmakers are working remotely from their homes to create some of the pre-visualization works, where they connect to same game engine and work together to create the environments, things like that. Let us continue. So when we are talking about a virtual production studio, again, this is a very expensive facility. I mean, it is not available for anyone, or at least not for indie filmmakers, that's for sure. I'm aware of that fact. But it again shows a great usage of game engines to be used here as a background elements. So this studio is by Pixomondo, one of the greatest studios on the world, working with virtual production. But it is a complicated process, by the way. And it has its pros and cons. But we should again emphasize, considering our title, the usage of game engines when using these kind of contents. So you might find some pros and cons, as it was shared by Pixomondo here. Sometimes you cannot get those LED screens in full focus, because then they will start looking like screens and not background elements. In those cases where you would like to have background also in pure focus, you might prefer to use green screen again, things like that. And not everything is very suitable to be used with virtual production, but it really makes things a lot easier and faster for many productions. So in this semester, I'm giving a lecture at Bahçeşehir University. It's called New Technologies in Gaming. And we have a collaboration with one of the, probably the one and only virtual production studio in Turkey, mainly the MJX Film studios. So they have a smaller virtual production facility, but they consider this first studio as their research and development studio. So this is where we are learning how to use their software at our university in our virtual reality laboratory. And also we have visited the studio and we have seen what kind of an environment we can use. Even within our lecture, our students have the ability to use these studio facilities with their planned created projects, with their own virtual reality, virtual environments. As you can see, these kind of studios also allow us things like set extension. Like, for example, you do not have to have a very high ceiling, but thanks to those machines where there is a great real-time rendering is happening from Unreal Engine to other render engine. They are using the software Disguise, by the way. And all these very high resolution images are being rendered in real time, and sometimes they even allow you to use set extensions. Like, for example, if the ceiling is not high enough, you can still add it within the engine, and then you can make it look seamless in the real environment. So if you will try to shoot this in a real studio environment, you should have to make a very huge green screen at least, or have to work on it afterwards in the post-production, or you really had to find a place that looks like that. So there are benefits of virtual production a lot. And we are also, as lecturers and students who are collaborating with these studios, are in having this chance to work with them and use their equipment for our test works, experimental works. As you can see, these LED screens look quite realistic if you have a distance to them. Of course, if you get very close to them, they will start looking like this. So these are how these LEDs look in close-up. So they are really LED screens. But again, let us stick to our title. It is still not Indieway, but the content can always be created by indie developers. I mean, anything that you create with Unreal Engine or Unity with high resolution textures can be used as your background elements in these kind of studio environments. So this kind of things can work for our own purposes. And another example here, you guys can see me. This is another virtual production company from Turkey, Izmir, which has a focus on broadcasting. As you can see, again, they are using game engines to create these contents. And in this GIF, you see that there is a cloud that is following me, and it's always raining on me. And I'm being tracked without using any kind of markers. So thanks to their new hardware, Traxxas, they are also able to use these kind of lower budget capabilities in many of those broadcasting studios all around the world. So they are selling their product both to Turkey and also to many countries on the world. So as you can see, I am being tracked and these clouds are following me. Again, is it Indieway? No, it's a very big production studio, but this environment is quite expensive for an indie developer, indie maker, indie designer. But again, there are some alternative technologies that allow us to reach some of the capabilities of these high-end production facilities. Another skill of these zero densities work is actually to be able to add AR objects, augmented reality objects into our scenes. So again, these tools, these contents can be created with any 3D designer that is just listening to us now or can work on these contents. So there is going to be a great need for those who can create content and who can operate these software. So I would like to, again, maybe this comes from being a lecturer, I would like to, again, encourage anyone or everyone to join this movement. If you like to tell your story, there is great opportunities out there and you can join this movement and be a part of it. Whether you're going to design a 3D model or you are going to learn about operating these kind of software and create and build your own environment. So you're all welcome. Like I said, this virtual production revolution have also allowed us to work remotely. And this is, again, a very good example that I really like to share. This is us, I think it's an elementary school, a theater play designed by a designer, Patrick Osborne, who is an Academy Award-winning director. He is contributing to this school to create their own virtual theater project. So there are characters designed just for these children, and they all have some iPads in their hands, which track their facial movements, and these are recorded. And afterwards, we have a virtual theater project that looks like as if it was made by a big studio or like a Pixar project or like that. I mean, this all can be handled thanks to one designer. So these kind of examples show us that if you have a good computer, if you have an iPad to track your facial movements, or if you have a webcam, even, I mean, there are some software that is capable of tracking your facial movements. You can even have a cinematographic work where you can have facial capture and body capture and reflect those kind of movements into your virtual beings, virtual characters. So what I was trying to handle and do here was actually to show you what's happening in the professional environments, and then to get insights about what we can do in our limited small environment. So again, this was many of the examples that were made thanks to Unreal Engine and virtual production facilities. Again, this has been used. This technology has been used also sometimes in Turkish television to create those virtual studio environments. This, guys, is the software the collaborative partner of ours, MJX Studios, is using. So there are some new software companies coming to this scene and building their works. So as you can see, this example, Katy Perry was giving a live concert, and again, game engines are being used to create those rendered background images, and it creates an environment where it looks as if Katy Perry is in a cartoony world. So thanks to these virtual production technologies and thanks to these LED walls, all is happening in real time. Let me go to our next slide. In addition to that, I would also like to talk a little bit about XR as a tool for creating videos. You have already seen some examples in previous videos, but for example, if you have a VR headset at home, which doesn't necessarily have to be the final, most expensive one, but it's pretty much basically allows you to walk around in your virtual environment. So you can, again, as in the example of Steven Spielberg here, when making Ready Player One, a movie about virtual worlds, he was really using virtual reality. So he was going around, deciding for his shooting angles and camera movements even, and he is even lying down. You can see these kind of technologies are not really inaccessible to independent developers. I mean, if you will take a look at Turkey's example, of course, it's getting much more difficult due to the current USD Turkish lira currency values. But again, with a professional investment facility, you can create a bunch of great works, of course, but even with a very small budget, you can use a bunch of the technologies that are available there for free. I mean, you don't necessarily have to have a virtual reality headset in your hand or head. You can even use some virtual cameras just by keyframing them as if you are using After Effects or Premiere Pro software. So again, here in this example, you see that some real camera equipment is used to manipulate the virtual cameras. This is actually not necessary for us, for those indie professional indie makers, because you can basically do that all with just changing some numbers within the engine. Okay, so the reason why they are using it is actually because they're also working with some elderly professionals, as in the example, who have great talents in creating the visual angles, but are not very good with using those new technologies. So these are some technologies to represent what was there available in the previous classical filmmaking and to create a bridge between those technologies. So do not think that you should necessarily have to have these kind of technologies. Another tool that I really liked but is not available anymore is actually Mindshow. It was an opportunity for the VR users to create their own films. This time you would not expect a VR film to create, but you would create a video that can be watchable in YouTube or other environments. So there are many products that allow us to do that. Flipside is also one of them. As you can see, you can have your virtual cameras all around while you are in the virtual reality, and you can use these tools to create your own videos, which are available for you to upload to YouTube or any other streaming sources. This example was also one of those great examples. It's a theater project where actors are really in a theater stage. They are acting, and there are a bunch of viewers who are sitting at the viewing positions, which you can see at the beginning in the audience. So you can either watch this kind of content in virtual reality or watch it afterwards. It's after it was converted into a video. So again, there is a mixture between these kind of concepts. Therefore, one of the reasons that I'm trying to use umbrella terms is actually examples like these, where we see a mix of methodologies and techniques. Again, this is a great example. Virtually speaking, Joe Hunting is a virtual filmmaker, I would say. He walks around in virtual environments and has a virtual camera in his hand. And he shoots a documentary with the characters, with their avatars, etc. And this also allows him to add some serial images into the content. So these kind of content tools give us a bunch of freedom to create and use it, to turn them into real-time rendered final works. You can always work on them afterwards if you like to, but the real-time revolution is quite something. Finally, I would like to talk about XR as a platform. So many of you know the allegory of Plato's cave allegory, right? This was considered as a good symbolic representation of filmmaking, of cinema, of watching a movie in a darkened theater room. So, but as you know, many of you also know, this cave allegory is actually a story about awakening, about realizing what the truth is. So I like to use this analogy because when we are thinking about being in a film theater, we are somehow limited. But if we use VR as a viewing platform, we are somehow liberated from this sitting position and a passive viewing experience. So I would like to further use this analogy to represent what our evolutionary process in terms of film viewing experience, not as making experience. So at this time, things like immersion and presence play a great role, of course, but I will not go into detail too much because our time is running up. Again, thanks to these kind of new technologies, we can turn these film watching experiences into like real physical and emotional experiences where we would feel both the vibrations, wind, cold, heat, all kinds of sound, etc. from virtual environments. So if you will take a look at some of the examples that I shared here, I will not let's start the videos because it might take too much time. There are some great works which again prepared with game engines. This one, for example, Samsara has finally won an award during Venice VR Expanded Film Festival. and it is purely made with Unity. And if you will take a look at it, you will see it is the graphics, the visuals are pretty good, but they are also somehow limited. I mean, you do not expect what you expect from a game experiment, from those kind of visual storytelling works. So even those limitations might work in the favor of the creator. So you do not necessarily have to be a fully knowledgeable game designer with a great understanding for coding and programming. Even if you would just put those virtual characters into your environments and use those free assets, you could start creating your virtual cinematic storytelling works. In addition to that, as you can see, I mean, is it still filmmaking? Is it still considered as a cinematic storytelling works? This is debatable, of course, but thanks to these technologies, we might turn into environments where we will see that the audience members might interact with each other, interact with the real or virtual characters. And this might turn our understanding about filmmaking and film viewing experience upside down. So we are witnessing many, many revolutions at the same time. So I tried to summarize many of them as I could. Some of these URLs don't work, but it's okay. Yeah, I will also share those who will like to join to my Discord channel, this presentation too. So if you would like to join to my Discord channel, I can basically share it with you afterwards. So again, what is real and what is not real? So here in this example, again, we are witnessing a woman who is embracing her lost child again in virtual environments. So it is not a fiction, it is not considered as a filmmaking work, but it again shows us an immersive way where game engines can be used to create virtual environments where the barriers, the limits of what is virtual, what is real are mixing into each other. I will stop sharing for a while and open my final slide due to our time limitations. Maybe before that, I can just basically show this one. Sorry. I'm coming. Sorry about the delay. I'm back. Sorry about the problem. So final words.
Of course.
Sorry about that. I have mentioned already that my internet connection is not that stable. That happens from time to time. So this was the final work that I would like to show to you. I mean, this all is freely available for you guys. You can just basically create your own meta-humans, create your own characters, and you can create your own film works that doesn't necessarily have to look like all those cartoony examples that I've shown to you. I mean, you can create realistic works that can be even used both as pre-visualization work for your future projects, or they can even be used as final products, and with which you can apply to film festivals, or you can even get some agreements with some streaming platforms where you can show your work. Yeah, things like that. And let me switch to my final slide. So I would like to thank you again. I know it was a bunch of content mixed on top of each other, but the topic is quite large. So I hope you liked it. And I will always be there for you if you'd like to get in touch with me. I would like to work on some kind of your filmmaking projects, whether you are planning to use game engines or whether you just wanted to create some pre-visualization works for your content. So you can always join my Discord channel, and I will be happy to keep in touch with you. Thank you very much. And this was all, I guess.
And thank you for coming here and joining us today.
I'm very glad to be here. I hope all went fine. There was a few seconds where I lost the connection. I hope it was okay. Sorry
Yeah, it's okay,
that.
no problem. Thanks again. Hope to see you again.